For this workout routine, we're going to start off with a warm-up, then we're going to do 3 different cardio intervals, and then we're going to finish off with a cool down and a stretch. Just keep in mind that these intervals can be used with any cardio equipment you like, not just a bike. For this warm-up, we're going to be doing 3 minutes total, and we're going to be increasing the intensity every 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and get ready, and start it up. Now, if this is your first time through doing this routine, you're going to want to start on the very lowest level possible to begin with, just to make sure that you don't get yourself too tired out by the time you're done with this warm-up, because we're going to be increasing levels every 30 seconds. So just start out really nice and light. We're going to be slowly bringing that heart rate up, slowly warming those legs up. Now, as we're doing this warm-up, it's a good idea to practice that pedal stroke, making sure that you're not only pushing down on that pedal, but also pulling back up. So it's always a good idea to have toe cages on, some kind of toe strap, or as I'm using here, an actual clip-in pedal. Now go ahead and increase by a level. We're moving up to the next one. Whether you're using an electronic stationary bike, you're going to increase the intensity level by 1, the resistance level by 1. If you're using a stationary bike, like a spin bike, you're going to want to crank that tension down 1 more notch. Or if you're using a traditional bike like I am here, then you just want to use that gear selection to pop it down to that next smallest rear cog. And go ahead and move it up to the next one. Pop that gear lever up 1 more time, increase that intensity level, or crank that knob down 1 more time, get a little more tension on that flywheel. And just a couple seconds left. And go ahead and bump it up 1 more time. And go ahead and increase it 1 more time. Now, as you're doing this, be consciously aware of how intense this is for you. You've still got a few more rounds to bump up. So if you're starting to get a little bit too intense, then you might want to just stay right where you're at. Otherwise, keep increasing as you need to. By the time you're done with this, you want to have those legs really nice and warm and getting a good sweat going as well. Just a couple more seconds. And go and increase it 1 more time. We have just 1 round left. Now we have just about 10 seconds till we hit that last one. Now on this last one, if your legs are really starting to get tired on you, you can stay exactly where you're at and just hold it for 30 seconds before you start the first interval, or you can push it up 1 last time. So go ahead and pop it up 1 more if you want to, otherwise stay right here for 30 seconds before we start our first interval. Alright, let's go and get ready for our first interval. What we're going to be doing on this one. Alright, for our next interval, we're going to do similar to what we just did, just switch it up a little bit. We're going to do 20 seconds of a mid-range intensity seated, and then we're going to do 10 seconds of a high-intensity sprint standing. We're also going to do 4 rounds of this, just like we did in the last interval, so let's go ahead and get ready. And start up. 20 seconds mid-intensity seated. You want this to be around 60 to 75% of your maximum effort, so not quite a sprint, but pretty close to it, kind of a fast run basically. You want to really work those legs, you want to get them nice and tired, but not burn them out. And we're going to start that first sprint in 3, 2, 1. Stand it up, crank it up really nice and high. You want to really push it on this one. You're only going for 10 seconds, so there's no reason why you can't push 100%. And 3, 2, 1. Drop it back down to that mid-intensity. Sit back down. We got 20 seconds. And take a second to check that pedaling form. You want to make sure that you're always either pushing down or pulling up with that foot. You never want to let that foot just kind of have a free ride coming back up. So always check on pushing down and pulling back up. Got just a few seconds left. And stand it back up. 10 seconds high intensity. Make sure you're up in those pedals. Cranking it as hard as you possibly can. Really make those legs burn. 3, 2, 1, and drop it back down. Go ahead and let it relax. Remember, we're doing 60 to 75% of your maximum intensity, so don't let it completely relax. You still want those legs really working on this one. Now after this next high intensity round, we only have one full cycle left and then we're going to be finished. So keep pushing through it. We're almost done. 2, 1, and stand it up. This is your second to last 10-second high intensity standing round, so make sure those legs are burning by the time you're done. 3, 2, 1, and drop it back down. Mid-intensity seated. Remember, 60 to 75% of your maximum. Try to push up a little bit higher towards the higher end of that, a little closer to 75. You want those legs to be nice and tired by the time you're done. You only have one high-intensity 10-second left and one mid-intensity 20-second left before you start into a nice long slow recovery. 3, 2, 1, and stand up. Go in that last 10-second high-intensity standing. Really crank it out. This is your last one, 100% all the way. 3, 2, 1, and go ahead and sit back down. Keep those legs turning over. You want to try to keep it about a 75% of that maximum, even though those legs are burning. You want to try to keep it going for just a little bit longer. We only have about 10 seconds left, and you get a nice long rest. And we're done in 3, 2, 1, and let it relax. We're going to do 1 minute recovery pace. This is a really nice slow pace. You want to have those revolutions per minute on those feet really nice and slow. You also want to have that difficulty level, that tension really nice and low. This is just to try to keep those feet moving. You're not trying to do any kind of real active work with this one. You're just trying to keep that blood flowing through those legs. So we're going to start into that next interval here in just a bit. But for now, grab a drink of water, take your time, just keep those legs moving. Is a 20-second high and a 10-second low 4 times through. So that 20 seconds of high, you want to be sprinting as hard as you can with the gears as high as possible. That 10-second low, you want really nice and low, but still doing a little bit of work. Let's go ahead and get ready. And start it up. 20 seconds of high intensity. Really crank it up. You're going to have to kind of judge yourself as far as how hard you can push for this 20 seconds, but try to push it as hard as you possibly can. You want those legs starting to burn a little bit. And make sure you're focusing on that stroke pattern. When you're sprinting, you're going to have a tendency to want to just push down, but make sure you're pulling that foot right back up as well. And go ahead and let it relax. Drop down for 10-second rest. Make sure you're still working a little bit, but really, really nice and low. And we're starting in 3, 2, 1. Crank it up, that next 20-second high intensity. And 3, 2, 1. Drop it back down. 10-second rest. And 3, 2, 1. Crank it right back up again. 20 seconds high intensity. This is our second to last interval on this one, so keep pushing through it. You only have one more. Rest in 3, 2, 1, and drop it back down. This is your last low intensity. You got one more high intensity, and then you get a nice long break. And let's start that last high intensity in 2, 1, start it up. This is your last high intensity round, so really push yourself on this one. Crank it up to as much tension as you can handle for the next 20 seconds. We've got just a little bit extra break after this one before we move into our next interval, so really get those legs screaming. And you've got your rest coming up in 3, 2, 1, and let it relax. Drop it back down really nice and low. Keep those feet moving. Drop your revolutions per minute down a little bit, and just really nice and light so you can recover those legs a little bit. You want to try to get them recovered as much as you can before we start into our next interval. All right, let's go and get ready for our next interval, which is going to be a 40-second low, nice long rest, followed by a 20-second medium-high hill climb standing, then a 10-second seated sprint, and then a nice 20-second medium-high seated. We're going to start up in 3, 2, 1, and start up. 40-second low intensity. This needs to be around 40 to 60% of your maximum effort. So nothing real intense, but you definitely want to feel those legs working. Right here's a good point to check that pedaling form, making sure that you're not only pressing down really nice and hard with that foot, but also pulling back up. Now it's only going to be around a 40% effort pulling back up compared to that push down, but you want to make sure you are actually getting a fair amount of effort pulling that foot back up. And then we're going to start that first high intensity interval in 4, 3, 2, 1, and start up. Now this is a medium hill climb, so you don't want to really kill yourself on this one. It's not 100% effort, but you do want that resistance really nice and high, using your body weight to turn those pedals over. We're going to start that seated sprint in 3, 2, 1, and start up. Sit down, crank those feet over as fast as you can, increase that resistance if you can, otherwise keep it the same, but try to get those feet going as fast as possible. And we're going to start that next one in 2, 1, and let it relax. Drop it down to that medium high seated. So decrease that tension just a little bit, decrease that resistance just a little bit. Keep those feet turning over relatively decent speed. This one needs to be about 60 to 75% of your maximum effort. And we're going to drop it down for that 40-second rest in 2, 1, and let it relax. So remember, drop it down really nice and low. This is around a 40 to 60% of your maximum effort. Really nice and light, just keeping those feet turning over. And we're starting into that standing hill climb again here in just a second. Remember, this needs to be around 80% of your overall intensity level. So start you out in 3, 2, 1, and start it up. And we're coming up on that 10-second sprint in 3, 2, 1, and start up. Sit down, turn those feet over as fast as you possibly can. Crank that intensity up as much as you can. Remember, 100% effort here. And move to that 20-second medium and 2, 1, and let it relax. All right, drop that tension down just a little bit. Drop that resistance down just a little bit. Keep those feet moving. Remember, this needs to be around a 60 to a 75% of your maximum, preferably towards the 75%. Moving close to that 40-second rest in 3, 2, 1, and let it relax. Drop it down to that low intensity. Remember, around 40 to 60% of your maximum. Keep those feet turning over. This is the start of your third interval through. We've got one more after this one, and then we're going to start into our cool down. So make sure that you're really pushing it on these last 2 rounds. And we're starting into a 10-second hill climb here in 3, 2, 1, and start up. Go and stand up in those pedals. Crank that resistance up. Really push those pedals over as hard as you can, around 80% of your maximum effort. And starting that 10-second sprint in 2, 1, and drop it down. Crank it up really nice and high. Turn those pedals over as fast as you possibly can with as much resistance as possible. 100% effort. And 3, 2, 1, go ahead and drop it down to that 20-second medium high. Remember, about 60 to 75% of your maximum, preferably closer to that 75. Just keep those feet turning over. Make sure you have a pretty decent amount of resistance on there. You still want to be working for this one. And dropping it down to that 40-second recovery in 3, 2, 1, and let it relax. Drop it down. Keep those feet turning over. Remember, around 40 to 60% of your maximum effort. Just keep those legs working. All right, we're going to be starting into that last round of these intervals here in just a second. Make sure you're really pushing yourself. We're going to start you up in 3, 2, 1, and begin. 20-second standing hill climb. Jump up in those pedals. Crank that resistance up really nice and high. 80% of your maximum effort. And that 10-second sprint in 3, 2, 1. Start up. 100% effort. Push it as hard as you possibly can. Really crank those feet over. This is the last time you're doing this. So keep pushing. We're starting that 20-second medium in 3, 2, 1, and start it up. So go ahead and slow those feet down a little bit. Drop that resistance off just a bit. But you still want to keep pushing yourself. You want to try to keep it about a 75% of your maximum, maybe a little bit lower. But try to push it up towards the highest end you can. This is your last active interval. All right, stay right where you're at as far as intensity goes. We're going to start our 4-minute cool down. Every 15 seconds, we're going to drop that intensity level just a little bit more until we're completely done. All right, go ahead and let it completely relax. We're going to do some stretches next. We're going to do a calf stretch, starting with that left leg first. Shove that left heel down as far as you possibly can, keeping that left leg nice and straight. Just let that calf completely stretch out. And go ahead and switch legs, roll those pedals around so you're stretching out that right leg this time. Keep that right leg nice and straight, letting that heel drop as far as is comfortable. And we got a hamstring stretch next, back to that left leg. Put that pedal forward, that left pedal's going to be forward, stretching forward on that left leg to get a good stretch on that hamstring. If you want to, let that heel drop again, trying to get into that calf as well. But you only need to focus on that hamstring, so just tip forward as far as you can with that left pedal forward. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. Do the same thing with the right. So bring that right pedal forward. Now you want that right and left foot completely level. You want those hips nice and level. Just leaning forward over that right leg as much as you can to stretch out that hamstring. And we're almost done. One more stretch. Let's go ahead and jump off the bike. We're going to do a standing quad stretch. So pull that left leg back, grab that left foot with that left hand, squeezing that heel to your butt as close as is comfortable, and then pulling that knee back behind you. Should feel a good stretch to the front of that thigh as well as the front of that hip, maybe even into those lower abs. And go ahead and switch legs. Your last one right here. Pull that right foot back, grab it with that right hand. Remember, heel as close to your butt as you can, then shove that knee back behind you as far as possible, stretching the front of that thigh and the front of that hip. And go ahead and let that leg relax. All right, good job. This workout is complete. You just finished Fitness Blender's indoor cycling workout.